Hey, this is Matt once again. We're about to another review. This is another paid request, this time from Guillermo. It's for Fury of the Demon. Now, if you go into this thinking it's a horror film, you're going to be disappointed. I thought this is rather interesting because it plays off like a fake documentary, and I thought it did it rather well. It's about an hour and 2 minutes long. It was for free on YouTube. I found it, and it's a foreign film. So if you don't like subtitles, I don't know what to tell you. It's mainly in French with subtitles, and it's about that in 2012, this silent film that was found was shown to an audience, and it erupted in violence, and people go, how did this happen? And they try and look at the history of this film, where it came from, what happened, what could have happened. And it's a lot of talking head interviews. It does feel like a program you would see BBC or PBS, or it does feel like one of those programs. And it does feel real in the fact of, if you told someone, hey, here's a documentary, and maybe they doubt it a little bit, but they get scholars, they get actual directors like Alexander Aja, who did The Hills of Eyes remake and Crawl. They did Christoph Gans, who did Brotherhood of the Wolf, and I think he did Crying. I think he did Crying Freeman, Silent Hill, and a lot of other. And it's like, it was interesting to watch. Weirdly enough, in a historical sense, even though it's fake, but it's still interesting to watch because they go into the backstory of the director, and I cannot pronounce his name, but he's the director who did the silent films back in the day, like A Trip to the Moon, where he's very ahead of his time with special effects, technical wizardry, and George Demir, the guy who did A Trip to the Moon and many others. Even some of the films that like Thomas Edison took credit for, but it's like, oh, it's really this guy who did it. And it was interesting to see it on a historical front where they put enough real in there so that they put a little bit of the fake. Well, this and this and this is true, so it makes me easier to believe in this one and this one. And you get to see a lot of the old footage of the silent film era of what this guy made. The Like I said, it was interesting to watch, but the problems that can arise from doing it is it can become rather dry, and it's not really scary or entertaining. It's just interesting to see a bit of the history of cinema and making this story about the myth of this mysterious film that even back in the day in 1939 people went crazy, and then it disappeared, and then it reappeared, and it was found in these boxes, and they were shown 2012, and then you had people describing what they saw and what the crowds were doing. And this lost silent film that premiered at this museum, the crowd turned crazy, and people describing, man, I thought I was having a stroke, I thought I was hypnotized. And the film collector who sent the film there is in custody. And then it's scholars talking about the legend of what this film could have been, and back in the day they have like the great great granddaughter of the director of A Trip to the Moon discussing the guy's work back in the day. And it does showcase what the guy did back in the day. There was some technical wizardry to it. Like the four troublesome heads with all these heads being exchanged. I was like, wow, a guy was able to do this in like 19... 10 or 9. Because apparently the guy stopped directing in 1913. And again, that's the funny thing. Not funny, but the interesting thing is that they build a lot of merit in using these real people talking in a realistic fashion, like scholars, like fellow directors. There's no acting involved, except one guy at the very, very end, which is ironic because it's one of the only Americans in the movie. At the very end, he's talking about this mysterious film, and I'm like, okay, you sound like you're acting a bit. Should have taken him out. The other people who were speaking their native language in French and what have you, they didn't feel like actors. They felt like, hey, they were being interviewed. They're talking about this legend, and this is kind of one of those interesting things as sort of a trick. If you took this, you give it to someone, and you just tell them, yeah, this is a real documentary. This is pretty interesting. Give it a look, and then see what the action is. There's actually a part of me that wanted me to do the review and say, oh, this is a real documentary. It's interesting. But it's like, no, I'd be lying because I know it's not real. And it'd be making people full of shit. But just, and this is a paid request for review, and it's not my job to do that. But yeah, it'd be interesting if you took this, you give it to someone, like class. Like that'd be, if someone taught a class, a film class, and they took this and said, this is a real documentary, I want you to tell me your thoughts after it, show it, hour later, it'd be interesting and fascinating to hear the discussion afterward about it. Just and they go into the director's real life story about he stopped making films in 1913. It was because of the First World War, and how this guy was into all this technical wizardry. Sadly, he was selling sweets. He was selling this regular stuff to his dying days. Then they put in the story about this one film, 1939. Did this guy do it? Well, actually, it might not have been this guy who did a trip to the moon. It might have been this other guy who was this medium named, what was his name? Sicarius. I think Sicarius. Who was said is like a medium. I think his first name was Victor. I think it was Victor Sicarius. He was a medium. He would take photographs, and then the photographs would be like the person there, and there'd be like a ghost. So trick photography, even back to the day, which is interesting. And then he wanted to get in the film business, and the one director allowed him to do it, but then he was doing some things that seemed a bit fishy, and then there were people disappearing, and then the guy was found hung, and maybe he's the one who made Fury the Demon, maybe he put a vicious, vengeful spirit among the film. And that's the thing, again, that you're watching it, it's interesting to see how they wove a tale. It's a lot better than Kingdom of Var, which was a horrible, shitty, no-budget movie that had that idea of a lost silent film, but then it caused people to go, like, some kind of power to it. Or even this one film called Mortal Remains, I believe, where it was some film from the 70s that people saw and went crazy. I would say I like this better than them. But again, this isn't really a film. It really is like a fake documentary. And so there's that part of you that kind of goes, okay, well, what's the point of this? Because, again, there's not really anything that makes it seem scary or frightening. Or I never really felt creeped out. Like, I thought another film that tried to do that and did a bit better. I'm trying to see if I have the DVD around here. It was a film called Savage Land. Was that try to have like a documentary about this town that was completely destroyed, and one guy was accused of doing all the killings, but then as it goes on, you find out that his camera was found and he took a lot of pictures. You see these really creepy pictures, and then detailing the story of what might have actually happened and the tragic points. Like Savage Line, I thought did that a lot better to create a more creepy vibe to it. So again, there's really none of that here because it's all just talking heads, old footage, old pictures, more talking heads, old pictures, old footage. I guess like a program you would see on TV. So on one end, it makes it more realistic, maybe not as entertaining. Or again, if you look at the title, you look at the cover, you may be misled to thinking it's a different movie when it's hard to even call it a horror film. It's not really a horror film at all. I mean, the ideas are horror centric perhaps, but it's not going to be a film that's for everybody. Like I say, if you want to just fall into an escapism of like maybe it's not real, but let's say like with all movies, anytime you watch a movie, even this, whatever, you fall into escapism. Let me just escape for 90, 100 minutes and my mind believe what I'm seeing is real, even though it's not. If you do that for this, maybe you get some little bit interesting recounting of actual history meshed in with their fictional stuff. And again, I think they did a good job blurring the lines. To repeat one more time, if you show this to someone, you told them it was a real documentary, I think there would be people that would believe it. And I think that onto itself is not too shabby of work. It's just, I don't see anything I would ever watch again. It made me mad, and it is only an hour long. And because of it, you're not going to get any finite answers because the film disappeared again, and maybe one day it'll be found again, and maybe it'll be another screening, and who knows what will happen then. Was it subliminal not messages, but images? Can't even say the word. Subliminal images, or was it mass hysteria? Was it maybe the film itself was haunted? Like I said, it's not scary and it's not entertaining, but it's interesting to escape into the little bit of the silent film era, which doesn't really get talked about nowadays or made into any points of a subject for any film, let alone documentary. So, but I'm into that. I'm into looking at the history of cinema. So it was fascinating, to a point. And to see the old films that I had not seen, like the old points of those silent films, that was nice to see as well. Like, I think it'd be interesting, and I wonder, like my friend Michael, the Choice Voice, I know he's interested in those old type of silent films. I wonder if I told him, I just is assuming he doesn't watch this video, hey Michael, this is a real documentary. Hey, can you watch this and review it for me? And then it'd be a trick. It'd be a mean trick. Well, no, but yeah, I'm not sure what else to say because you're not really talking about the acting. Because everybody's seen, well, other than that one guy, which I forget who he was with. It might have been, was it Rue Morgue? I don't know. It was like someone, I can't remember his name. It's like guy, he's had a little bit of facial hair. He's like really at the end of it. And he's the one that seemed like a bit more acting. And I don't think I saw him throughout the rest of it. Maybe that's why. But listen, it was interesting to watch, and yeah, not that badly made. So there you go. It's well edited, showcasing all the different formats back in the day. Yeah. Kudos to the editor, splicing all the old silent film footage throughout it, and more so. Yeah, to make an appearance of documentary, I think it did that fairly well. So, with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye bye. And no, they don't, because the film was taken, there is no footage of the film itself, The Fury of the Demon, which is the title of the movie, which I think is for the better, because no matter what you showed, it would be disappointing if that did happen. So I think just have people try to describe it, at least a little bits of it. Maybe that's for the better, to make your imagination work more than I did whatever they would showcase. It'd be a disappointment. So I think that was an understandable decision. Anyway, finally, we will see you guys later. Bye bye.